Hi everyone, I'm Wardah, a STEM Scholar Mentor, and today we'll be going over the second lesson of the second unit of Algebra 1, frequency histograms, box plots, and dot plots. So first we'll go over dot plots, and this dot plot is telling us the hours exercising per week. So here under the number line, it's labeled number of hours. So the dots must be the number of weeks. So here the person this dot plot is about, the person this dot plot is about completed 0 hours of exercise in 1 week, 3 hours of exercise again in 1 week, 4 hours of exercise in 4 weeks, 5 hours of exercise in 5 weeks, 6 hours of exercise in 3 weeks, and 9 hours of exercise again in 1 week. Next, let's go over histograms. So histograms kind of look like bar graphs, and for them, we always create a frequency table. So for our frequency table, they'll always give us some data values, and we're going to split them into intervals. So here they have, you always want your intervals to be easy to work with so that the rest of your graph is pretty easy to work with. So here their last data value was 16 and their first was 0. So they split that evenly to make it easier to work with for them. And then we use our data values, we count them up and put them into each interval, and then count the number of tallies or the frequency, and then place them into the histogram. So let's go over an example. Here we're given the heights and feet of former New York Knicks basketball players. So these are our data values, and using the heights given, complete the frequency table below. So here they gave us the intervals, so that's one step done, but our data values are not in order. But we need them to be in order so that we can complete the intervals. So let's put them in order. So then when placing them into the intervals, when getting the frequency, we need to place them into these intervals. So 1, 2, 3 is in 6.0 to 6.1, these 3. So our frequency for the first interval is 3. Then we're going to count up the rest like we did for the first one. If you count these up, you'll get 10 between 6.2 to 6.3, and so on and so forth. Next, we're going to use that frequency table to create our histogram. So first we need labels, and we're going to use the x-axis for the heights and the y-axis for the frequency. And we're going to place our intervals under heights. I didn't bother to label the frequency or the y-axis because we're dealing with pretty small numbers here. So for the first interval, we have 3. So that's pretty simple. 1, 2, 3. You can just count it. It's not too hard to work with. But when using larger numbers like 50 or 10, when it goes in higher numbers, you'll definitely need to label it. But so for the next one, we had 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So here for 6.6 to 6.7, we had 0, so we just don't put anything over there. And this is our histogram. Next, we'll go over box plots, which we did review briefly in our first lesson. So our first line for our box plot is always the minimum on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, the ending line is the maximum. You always start by drawing these out when creating a box plot. Then we're going to create the box itself. So the first line is the first quartile, and the third quartile is the last line. And our median is always within the box. No matter if it's in the middle, if it's in the left, if it's on the right, it'll always be within this box. So now we're going to do some practice questions. So the first one is a box plot question. Feel free to pause the video. And our second one is our dot plot question. Okay, so here are the answers you should have gotten. Let's go over them. So for the first question, it's just a pretty simple box plot question. They're asking us where the third quartile is, and we know that the third quartile is always the end of the box, so here, and that lines up with 90, so our answer is 92. to 90. Answer choice 2. For this question, we have a dot plot, and they did ask for quite a lot in this question. So, they're asking which statement about the data is not true. So, they're asking for the median, the interquartile range, and the mean. So, we know the median and the mean, and if you remember, the interquartile range is quartile 3 minus quartile 1. So, you'd have to write all of these out or place them in your calculator. So, for the mean, you'd have to add them all up and then divide them by the number of dots, since that's the number of numbers. For the median, you could write them all out, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, and so on, and then cross them out like we usually do. Or you can use this strategy, where this one is kind of tricky. So, if it gets a little hard for you, I'd rather you just use writing it out and then crossing them out the usual standard way. But you can start off by crossing out the ends of the dot plot, like this: 6 out, 0 out, 5 out, 0 out, 5 out again, 1 out, and then so on and so forth until you get to the very last number. And the interquartile range, you'd have to find the median and then find quartile 1, find quartile 3, and then find the difference between quartile 3 and quartile 1. So after doing all that, you would find out that the mean is not 3. So that's our answer. That statement about the data is not true. So 3 is our answer. That's all for today. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on my email listed here. And if you're looking to practice with any additional resources, JMAC and Khan Academy are some great ones.